The very first Hanukkah was celebrated in 164 BCE, when, as I'm sure you all know, the Maccabees and their small army defeated the Greek-Syrian army of Antiochus Epiphanes and won back the temple. Many assume that the custom of lighting the Hanukkah must therefore date from that time. But the first book of Maccabees, which was written shortly after those events, makes no mention of lighting candles. The festival referred to is rather the postponed festival of Sukkot, which the Jews were unable to celebrate that year because of the war. The second book of Maccabees, however, preserves a letter apparently written by Judah the Maccabee himself to the Jews of Alexandria. And in that letter, there's a connection made between the days of Sukkot and fire. The letter refers to the fire that burnt constantly in the Temple of Solomon and which miraculously descended from the heavens. It claims that this holy flame was protected and hidden by the prophet Jeremiah when the temple was destroyed and rediscovered when Nehemiah founded the second temple. Although not stated explicitly, the implication is that the flame lit by the Maccabees was ignited by a miracle. But there's still no mention of lighting candles. Even the Jewish Roman historian Josephus, in his book Antiquities of the Jews, says he doesn't know why Hanukkah is called the Festival of Lights. And there's no evidence at all that he lit candles on the festival of Hanukkah. Hanukkah appears to be an insignificant festival in the Jewish calendar. There's no special tractate section devoted to Hanukkah in the Mishnah, which was composed at the beginning of the 3rd century CE. When the Mishnah does mention the festival, it's in the context of liability for damage if a fire breaks out. Here's the passage. If a camel carrying flax passes through the public domain, so it's going down the street, and its flax extends into a store, and the flax catches fire from a lamp inside the store, setting fire to the store, the owner of the camel is liable. If the lamp, however, is outside, causing the flax on the camel to catch fire, and the building is set on fire, the storekeeper is liable. And then we have a statement from Rabbi Yehuda. In a case where the lamp placed outside was a Hanukkah lamp, the storekeeper is exempt, since it is a mitzvah for a Hanukkah lamp to be placed outside. No mention of what Hanukkah is or what lamps are or anything like that. So it seems from this tiny sentence given in the name of Rabbi Yehuda that he considers the lighting of candles on Hanukkah to be a religious commandment, or perhaps we should say the lighting of a lamp on Hanukkah is considered to be a religious commandment that would exempt the storekeeper from liability in a legal dispute. But the editor of the Mishnah, in whom Rabbi Yehuda's statement is inserted, his name was also Rabbi Judah the Prince, who was a disciple of Rabbi Yehuda, doesn't mention this at all. This might suggest that sometime in the 2nd century, after the time of Josephus and before the time of Rabbi Yehuda, Jews began lighting a Hanukkah candle, lamp, one, although it wasn't seen as a religious obligation by Judah the prince. I wonder why not. You might think about that. So the question for us tonight then is, where does the lighting of candles come from? The Romans celebrated a festival called Saturnalia, dedicated to the Roman god Saturn at this time of the year. And in fact, the Talmud speaks about this festival, and it also speaks about another pagan festival called Calendar. This Saturnalia was a time of feasting and resting, especially for soldiers who had no weekends or holidays throughout the rest of the year. Even the soldiers up at Hadrian's Wall. One of the customs connected with Saturnalia was the lighting of tapers or torches. Another was decorating one's home with evergreen wreaths and giving gifts, which might ring a bell. In the 3rd century of the Common Era, Abba Aricha, more commonly known as Rav, one of the greatest of the Babylonian rabbis, brought the custom of lighting a Hanukkah candle from Palestine to Babylonia. And it was Rav as well, apparently, who composed the blessing we recite before lighting the candles. Rav's intellectual opponent, Samuel, disliked this custom of lighting a candle, asking, "Does a candle hold holiness?" in mockery of the custom. Both Rav and Samuel argued over whether it was permissible to use a Hanukkah light to light another candle. But in time, it appeared that the lighting of candles gained in importance, and another blessing was added to the ritual, although, as we mentioned before, Rav's blessing only refers to one candle, lahadlik ner, to kindle the light of Hanukkah. So the question is, when did the practice of lighting 8 candles and the shamas develop? The Talmud teaches that the tradition of lighting a single candle eventually gave way to the custom of lighting multiple candles. The sages taught in a piece of oral law, Baraita, the mitzvah, the commandment of Hanukkah, is each day to have a light kindled by one person for himself and his household. And the Mahadrin, that's the super frum, kindle a light for each and everyone in the household. And the Mahadrin of the Mahadrin, that's the super frum, Beit Shammai says, on the first day 8 are kindled, and from then on the candles are gradually decreased. And Beit Hillel says, on the first day 1 light is kindled, and from then on the number of candles are increased. We, of course, follow Beit Hillel's practice. It wasn't until around the 4th century or later that this passage referring to 8 candles was added. And in the same sugya, in the same paragraph, we learn about other traditions with which we are familiar. For example, placing the Chanukiah in the window in order to proclaim the miracle of Hanukkah. And from Rabbi Abba ben Yosef bar Rama, known as Rava, that another candle had to be provided to provide light for regular use in addition to the Hanukkah candles. Eventually, that extra light evolved into the shamas, the servant candle. So, the ritual of lighting 8 candles on the Chanukiah developed over a very long period of about 500 years, if you count from the Maccabean rebellion to the period of the composition of the Talmud. Although its seeds may have been planted during the time of the book of Maccabees, Jewish practice was influenced by the customs of the Roman pagan neighbors of the Jews, and it took even longer until the middle of the 8th century for the prayer which you, Joshua, read for us earlier, Hanerot Halalu, to be codified in a minor tractate of the Talmud known as Masechet Sofrim, in which the lights of Hanukkah are described as Kodesh, holy. As it says, we are not permitted to use them, but only to gaze upon them, so that their light may move us to give thanks for God's wonderful acts of deliverance. May the candles we light in our homes and here in our community bring us strength and comfort, and help us to rededicate ourselves to the ennoblement of our Judaism and its place in the world. Amen. That's the prayer that you read, Joshua.